seeing is not, it didn't pick up the camera, so it's got some problems. You'll still get to see the graphics though. All right, so what I recommend is, just if you're watching, just listen on the radio channel, and you can watch for the pictures and stuff on the TV channel. But there is no camera, so there's no shots of me, and that doesn't hurt the show at all. All right, so I said everybody's distracted by this December the 21st, and everybody's so keyed up about it and so anxious about December the 21st, 2012. And I said, nothing's going to happen. Nothing. It's just going to be another day. No big deal. But, and this was the prediction, after it's over, after we get past December the 21st, 2012, you're going to see a shakeout in this genre. Now, some people interpreted that as, a whole lot of shows were going to just suddenly disappear and all that, which is not what I said, and I'm only responsible for what I say, not for what you think you understand I say, right? What I did say is there would be a shakeout, and there'd be a whole lot of people who would, be like turning off the credibility and turning off their interest in a lot of these shows and these hosts who hyped it up for December the 21st, 2012. And that eventually there would be a bunch of these, especially the hobby jock shows, that would disappear. But for those that were not hobby jock shows, they would simply look for a new, oh my God, the sky is falling disaster, and start hyping it. That is exactly what has happened. That is precisely where we are right now. And for those that, a lot of the hobby jock shows are fading away. People are, it's in a big yawn right now. And so what's happened is the ones that are not hobby jock shows, realizing that things are in this big yawn, have decided, well, we got to whip up some excitement. We got to get some, build up the interest and get people really, really going on this stuff again, because, we're losing audience, we're going to lose revenue and blah, blah, blah. And so they're just basically manufacturing stuff right out of the very, their worst dreams of hell, and putting it out there, and oh my God, the sky is falling again. And so it's done exactly what I said would happen, what I said it would do. Now, we don't do that. I realize the audience is in a huge yawn worldwide. That's not really my problem. That's your problem if you're in a big yawn. Because, you see, real stuff is happening. Real stuff was happening while you were so distracted and wrapped up and keyed up and wound up on December the 21st, 2012. Real stuff was happening that you weren't paying attention to then. And real stuff is happening that you're not paying attention to now, if you're one of the honors. But the real stuff is what we're after. The real stuff is where we go on the show here. So what we're going to do is dive into some of these real things that are going on and show you, I'm going to demonstrate for you here this evening that important real things are going on. The first one probably will not seem to you to be all that important, but it is truly important. It's the story of a lady named Chantel. Chantal is, it is said, is the most abducted. Now we're talking about alien abductions, okay? She is the most abducted person in the UK. Been abducted by aliens more than anybody else, at least that's what she says. First abduction took place in 1970. Now, you might be saying, well, okay, so why is that important? Well, it's important for a couple of reasons. It's important because they're doing a documentary in which she is featured. So this is going to get a lot of airplay, especially in the UK and in Europe. All right? So it's going to get a lot of airplay and draws attention, of course, to the whole subject of UFOs, right? Now that's got some value and that's important all on its own. But what else is in the UK happening with UFOs? Well, the Ministry of Defense, MOD, has been releasing their UFO files. They're declassifying them and releasing them. Now, as you know, they closed down the UFO desk in the MOD, the area of the MOD that investigated UFO reports. They closed it down, I think it was 2009. They've just released the last batch that cover the last 2 years of that whole thing with the the UFO desk at the MOD. They've just released that bunch of files. And there's a detailed explanation in there as to why they decided to close that desk, that job. In other words, they just eliminated that function at the MOD. And it was very, very interesting to read why they closed the UFO investigation desk. Do you know why? Well, because of two things. And this is where it gets important. UFO reports to the MOD UFO desk from the public, UFO reports were increasing rapidly. Lots and lots and lots of reports of UFOs. So they were increasing. And according to the MOD, in 50 years of investigation into UFOs, they had not identified a single threat to the security of the UK. No military threat. Therefore, having the Ministry of Defense, which is military, continue to spend money on investigating these things when there had never ever been identified a single threat to the security of the nation, seemed to be a waste of money. And I agree. I actually agree. If you have determined that they are not a threat to the security of the nation, then at that point the military, not necessarily the government entirely, but the military ought to get out of that business. And then, one wonders, if these things were not a threat, then why were the reports classified in the first place? They investigate them, discover it's no threat, or, they investigate it and decide that they've identified it as something, earthly. Like, just it was some kind, and really identified it, not one of their bogus explanations, but identified it as some kind of a weather anomaly, or they've identified it as some type of experimental aircraft or whatever. They've identified it. It's no longer unidentified, and it's not a threat. So why would you classify that file? Now see, I think that's an important question to ask, because we still have at least one, and maybe more, major governments playing, cloak and dagger spooks with this stuff. That would be, of course, the United States of America, still acting like it's some kind of big deal. The UK, of course, classified all of these reports and now declassified them and released them. Question: since you already knew they were not a threat, why did you classify them? What was your reasoning? What was your logic? What is your justification for keeping this information from the public? Well, I can think of only one answer, and it would really, that would be justifiable somewhat, and it really is not too justifiable, and that is that even though many of these UFO reports were identified through the investigation process, 5% of them were not and are still UFOs, officially to the military, to the MOD, unidentifieds. 5%. And there have been thousands and thousands and thousands of reports over the years, and now 5%, it comes down to 5% are genuine UFOs. Unidentified things in the air. Don't know what it is. And that is from the MOD. Now, if you take the position that there are no extraterrestrial craft, there are no flying saucers or UFOs, you take that position, then you got to come up with an explanation for the 5%. And there isn't one. So you can't take that position and be logical. You got 5% that you can't identify, right? All right. Now if you take the position that it is somehow worthwhile to tell the public there are no extraterrestrials, and they don't exist. If you take that position, then evidence to the contrary you would want to classify and keep from the public. It seems to me that the classification of these, in the light of the fact that they never found a threat, indicates that they did hold that position. They did not want the public to know anything about the existence of extraterrestrials, and therefore kept it classified to keep that information from the public. Somewhere along the line, the UK decided it was not worth it. Just let the information out, let it go. It's just not worth it. Their statement does not deny the existence of extraterrestrials. Their statement says UFO reports were increasing, creating an increased demand upon our resources to investigate. And in 50 years of investigation, we have not found a single case that was a threat to the security of the nation. So it's just not worth it to us. They are no military threat. Okay, that's an admission. That, along with the fact that they're admitting 5% were unidentified, it's an admission of the reality. We're going to take a break. We'll be back. And welcome back to the Kevin Smith Show and our discussion of important things happening. Now, this is a big development. You know, you read the story, this thing about the MOD, you read the stories in the news, and you see them online, you kind of go, oh, well, you know, okay, there's your big yawn. There you are, yawning, because in that story is huge facts. 5% are determined to still be, 5% of the UFO reports to the MOD UFO desk still determined to be unidentified. That's important. You know, the majority of the people in the world, their attitude towards that would be, oh, well, there are no UFOs. Well, you know, 95% of that stuff's been identified. Well, how many elephants does it take to prove elephants exist? One elephant, not 5% of them, one. So we're not talking about one report that's still identified. We're talking about 5% of thousands. 5% officially unidentified. But, second fact, 50 years of investigation have not turned up a single incident where it's a threat to the national security in the UK. So they're not saying they don't exist, they're saying 5% of them are unidentified. Don't know what they are. 2, they're not a threat to national security, whatever they are. 3, why were these reports ever classified once they had been identified? Why were they kept classified? The 95%. And I'm conjecturing that it's because they saw some value in keeping the public from even thinking that there are extraterrestrials. And when they gave up that nonsense, when they gave all that up, they decided to declassify the reports. They did not address the extraterrestrial issue and do not deny the existence of extraterrestrials, nor do they deny the existence of UFOs. Big news. Huge news. And at the same time, now you've got this Chantel who's going to be telling her story about alien abductions, and they're going to have some more people also talking about their experience with aliens in this documentary that's coming up in the UK. Among the last reports to the UFO desk was a lady who said she had been living with an extraterrestrial for the past couple of years in the UK. Now you may think, well, that's just nuts. Really? Why? Why is that nuts? Because you haven't experienced it? Is that why? All right, let's move on and let's talk about, well, let's see. Actually, I think what I'm going to do here is I think I'm going to go to the story about the Voyager and, you know, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, right? Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 have been for a long time headed out. And I think this is an important story. It's, in fact, I know it is. It's a very important story. And it's important because the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are really ambitious space exploration projects. They're not exploring planets. They are exploring space itself. And so, you know, they're just headed out there. And they've been going now for, what, 30 years or so? And NASA's been saying, well, you know, they're almost to interstellar space. They're about to get out of the heliosphere. and hit interstellar space. A few months ago, they were reporting, well, there's been some change in the data. We think it's just about to break through into interstellar space. Well, now they have determined, well, not quite, because there is this region or area of space within our heliosphere they did not even know existed. The Voyager 1 and 2 have broken through the area that they thought was all of the heliosphere into what? More heliosphere. They're calling it the helio sheath. And for those who are watching the TV channel, there's a picture of this helio sheath and where Voyager 1 and 2 are located now, and our solar system right there in the middle. And so it's it's important. The whole thing is important because it's an area of space that, or a condition, I guess you could say, in space that the scientists had no idea even existed. Now, obviously, they knew that distance existed. What they did not know is that you still have some weak influence of the helio system. Helios is our sun, of course. So you have the sun, and think of this. You can draw a circle around the sun, draw a little dot for the sun about the size of a small pencil eraser. Then draw a circle around it about the size of a tennis ball. Then draw around that an elongated circle about the size of a cantaloupe. So Voyager 1 has now left the tennis ball and is in the cantaloupe. Here is a case where, you've heard me say all the time, if you add up everything that everybody on the face of the planet who has ever lived on the planet, add up everything they know, it would be about the size of a pinhead in comparison to everything there is to know. And so sometimes, I will make statements on the show about scientists, and I'll say things like, they don't know about this. That's a guess. This guy's guessing, but he's passing it off as knowledge. You've heard me say that, right? Well, here's a case right here, actually proving that this happens. Because you see, up until just a few weeks ago, when the analysis of all this data was wrapped up until then, all the best science said, I'm talking about the learned, the PhDs, the experts, they said that past the tennis ball was interstellar space. Turns out not to be the case. They didn't know. And my point is, they couldn't know because they haven't been out there, nor have we ever sent anything out there. So they were guessing what was out there. But when Voyager got there and started sending data back, then they kind of went, oops, well, there's this cantaloupe, you see. There's this region of space that's still influenced by the Helios system, and but it's close to interstellar space. It's real close to interstellar space, but it's not interstellar space. So there's a case where the experts have been talking as though they know when they don't. And it was a guess. It was just guessing. Now I point this out. This is important information, and I point it out to you because I want you to see the evidence, the actual factual evidence, that I'm telling you the truth when I tell you these guys are guessing. Now, I don't disrespect education. I really don't. I have a good education, an excellent education. I don't disrespect it. I respect it enough to know where its boundaries are. I respect it enough not to turn it into a religion. And that's what a lot of these scientists have done. They've turned what they think they know into a religion. Here's proof that religion was wrong. There's a lot of things that scientists do know. But in comparison to what there is yet to know, they are massively, grossly ignorant compared to what there is yet to know. Now, speaking of things we know and things we do not yet know, closer to home than Voyager, much, much closer to home, is a planet called Mercury. All of the planets, including Pluto, and I know lots of people think Pluto's not a planet anymore, and my opinion of that is horsepucky.